for their oil wealth. Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera, digital producer Dylan Mietinen, our engineers Jessen Dueller, Becca Weinman, and Nick Esposito. It's the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
At ViStar Credit Union, we believe in helping members reach their financial goals and building stronger communities. It's why we offer our members better rates and give back to the places we call home. ViStar Credit Union. Visit vistarcu.org/join. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
I'm Ethel Butt, and just ahead this hour, we'll take a look back at the week's top stories with our First Coast Connect Week in Review. Another mass shooting, this time in Maine, 2 months to the day of the racist mass shooting at Dollar General here in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is making headlines this week. More on those stories. Councilman Nick Howland is raising concerns over a no-bid contract Mayor Deegan awarded to Langton Consulting. And Gator and Bulldog fans swarm River City right outside our studios, actually, getting ready for tomorrow's big game. Plus, the Nightmare on Bay Street returns. All that and more coming up on First Coast Connect Week in Review. Don't forget our live stream is available on our First Coast Connect Facebook page and also on YouTube. But first, the day's news.
It's 9:01. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. The Florida legislature will hold a special session next month to discuss, among other things, strengthening state sanctions against Iran because of that country's alleged role in attacks on Israel. Sean Canan reports Florida's only state representative, who is of Iranian descent, says holding the session focusing on foreign policy is unnecessary.
Orlando area Democratic State Representative Anna Eskamani says her family fled Iran in search of freedom and she opposes Iran's government. But it's not the role of a state government to make foreign policy, like what Governor Ron DeSantis is trying to do with the special session. Eskamani says the governor is exploiting a horrific crisis taking place in Israel and Gaza for his own political gain.
I do see this as just more politics. I see this as performance. And it's frustrating because Floridians need us to focus on things like property insurance and funding public education and the affordability crisis.
Eskamani says the special session could further isolate individuals who are experiencing Islamophobia right now. In addition to Iran sanctions, the special legislative session will cover issues like providing assistance to people recovering from Hurricane Idalia and shoring up funds for the My Safe Florida Home program. It's expected to begin on November 6th. I'm Sean Canan in Tampa.
Putnam Community Medical Center of North Florida must pay $1 million to the government to resolve allegations it violated the False Claims Act. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the company, which owns and operates a 99-bed hospital in Palatka, submitted claims to Medicare and TRICARE in connection with a now-closed sleep center that was operated without doctor supervision. The temperature in Jacksonville is 71 degrees. It's mostly cloudy right now.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
Good morning. Florida-Georgia weekend is finally here. I'm Ethel Butt, and you're listening to First Coast Connect. It's Friday, which means it's time for our Jacksonville Week in Review. Here are some of the big headlines this week. A mass shooting in Maine just 2 months after the racially motivated mass shooting at the Dollar General store here in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is also back in the headlines this week. The Langton Consulting contract approved, and Gator and Bulldog fans are taking over the River City right outside our studios, getting ready for Saturday's big game. And then later, Nightmare on Bay Street. It's a full show today, so let's get going. Joining me today for our roundtable discussion are Dan Scanlon, reporter with Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Radio host and journalist Angela Spears, good friend of mine. How are you, Angela?
Hey there, how are you?
Good to see you. Jack Webb, former city council president and regular contributor.
Thanks for having me.
And David Bauerlein, a columnist from the Florida Times-Union. Good morning, David.
Good morning, everybody.
Now, you can also listen live on the radio or watch our video stream right now on Facebook and the WJCT YouTube page. You can call us at 549-2937, message us on X at FCC On Air, email us at firstcoastconnect@WJCT.org, or hit us up on Facebook and Instagram. Now, first, we want to talk, Wednesday evening, a mass shooter entered a bowling alley and a restaurant in Lewiston, Maine, killing 18 people and injuring several others. This atrocity occurred 2 months to the day of the Dollar General mass shooting in Jacksonville, where 3 residents lost their lives in a racially motivated attack. Let's talk about the warning signs that may have been missed here and some of the laws that need to be changed. Who wants to start us off?
I was going to say, I think there was some signs that the shooter in the Maine, the person of interest, the suspect there, did have some perhaps mental health issues, hearing voices in terms of some of the reports that have coming out. So then the question becomes, well, what do you do about that? And that's the big challenge, obviously, in these cases.
I mean, the new hearing aids that he had, apparently he was hearing voices. That's what I heard on network. He had already been somewhat punished and remanded to some kind of psychological review, unlike the young man here in Jacksonville in August, where there were no apparent signs other than living at home with his parents and apparently having some viewpoints that he focused on.
Well, to that point, this guy, he was an Army reservist,
Mhm.
right? He had been there for a number of years. He had been doing some training down in Camp Smith, which is right outside New York City, and the military called the cops. They called civilian authorities because he was threatening other soldiers. And he was actually hospitalized at the military at West Point, and they did an evaluation. I don't know what happened to him after that point, but he was precluded from he did not do any training for these guys. And so talk about warning signs. I mean, this is over the top.
So when are we going to talk about the issue? The gun.
Well,
The AK-47, because that's the issue. Yes, he had problems, but what about the issue of guns in our community? You have the Speaker of the House coming out saying, oh, his heart and all this and his mind, our prayers and thoughts. Once again, prayers and thoughts. But we need action, right? We need laws to change. And Cory Booker once said, I can't change the hearts and minds of people, but I can change laws and make it happen. And that's what we need to get to. You're the main congressman who changed his mind, who said, I supported these assault style weapons, but now I want to ban them.
But these were legally acquired weapons.
I think that's the point.
And one comment yesterday on NBC News that this was the guy you wanted to train you in how to use these weapons, and that he knows his stuff right now, so that anyone who's going after him should be very careful. This man knows how to do it. So the legal and the young man in Jacksonville legally obtained weapons. The warning signs, it may take a while for government to work. That's the problem. It takes a while for someone to say, hey, maybe we need to seize those weapons.
There are 3 issues here. You got mental health issues, right? And then you got societal angst. This is grumpy old men on steroids, okay? Things are changing, not happy. You got mental issues, you got societal angst, you got economic dissatisfaction, dislocation, and then you've got access to guns. So you got 3 variables.
Why do we need that type of gun, though, Jack?
Well,
why do we need a gun that was meant, right? It was meant, and it was created, during the Vietnam War to kill people, to shoot people, to massacre people because we were in war. Do I need that gun walking around here sitting, an AK-47 talking to you, an assault-style weapon?
Purely theory, collectors like them, people who like to do precision shooting like them. You can't hunt with them. at least not that I'm being told. So I don't know. There are a portion of people who legally and they feel morally should have the right to collect and use a semi-automatic or automatic assault weapon.
Didn't we have a time during the 90s when there was a ban on it that we didn't see mass shootings like this for several years? And people agreed on it.
And the scary thing right now, and even TK Waters has said this, there are people out there who can 3D print the small piece of equipment that can convert any weapon to automatic. It is as easy, if you know the right people, to buy as buying popcorn. It's just, and that amazes me. That's scary to know that you can even take a handgun, convert it to automatic, and you can empty that clip in seconds.
Let's talk about the difference between red flag and orange flag rules. We know that Florida, we have red flag rules, which means if you're suspicious that somebody's, going to use these weapons, the police can go and take them away temporarily. But in Maine, they have the yellow flag rules, which is basically that if they want to take those away, they have to have a medical evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the barriers as well. People are saying that that should not be the case. Governor DeSantis says he doesn't think there should be a national red flag rule. He thinks the problem is the mental health issue, and that when people have mental health issues, they should be locked up, as he said. What do you think about that?
Well, locking up mental health, that's, again, I'm not buying that. I mean, that's, again, if you want to invest in services to address, treat mental health issues, rock and roll, I'm all on board. But, let's see you get that through the legislature. But lock them up, yeah. And again, the absence of, or the need for a medical evaluation, that's fine. But this particular guy did have a medical evaluation. Nothing happened.
All I can tell you is last night in my neighborhood, we had what apparently was a Baker Act. We had 3 fire engines and 2 police cars, and a person was led away in handcuffs. And I have to presume that that person was considered a danger to themselves or others and was escorted away. Baker Act is the term we don't like to use, but it means involuntary submission to a mental health exam, and you're held for, what, 36 hours, 48 hours?
Yeah.
48.
And then you're back on the street, and during that time, a prudent adult in the room would look around the house and find if there's any weapons, so that when that person returns, there are none. And obviously that's what a red flag or yellow flag would do in some states.
And for some people with the yellow flags, I was hearing different reports and talking with different people, and some people are saying that they don't like to report their loved one because they don't want the person to be arrested. Yes, they want them to be checked out, but like you said, the person, if he was Baker Acted, he was led away in handcuffs.
That's what I could see. We were all down at the end of the street. And again, parents may not want that, but parents could be the first victim. It's happened before nationwide. They become the first or second victim of a person who uses a weapon.
Let's go to some callers. Stanley on the north side. Stanley, you're on air.
Yes, I'm downtown Jacksonville. I'm on the north side, but I'm downtown. My concern is just like the young lady just said. Until you address mental health and all the other issues, the common denominator is guns. We have too many guns. Why can't us educated people can't figure that out? The guns. Let's get rid of the guns until we get our act together. Then we'll go back to the guns and talk about the guns. But right now we got a problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, Stanley. And he makes a good point. We don't see these types of mass shootings in other countries.
Or if you do, there's certainly not so many of them. And here it just has become almost every month there's another one of these. And the prevalence of guns certainly is an issue. And there's 2 different approaches. One is, what do you do to stop somebody from being able to purchase a gun? I think in the case of the Jacksonville Dollar General mass shooter, there was an argument that the governor made that he should never have been allowed to get the gun in the first place. And then there's the question of, but the sheriff has said no, that he legally purchased that gun. And so there seems to be kind of this, what exactly is the law? How does it apply in these cases? And then there's the other question of, okay, if somebody has a mental health issue, what authority do you have to go and take guns away from that person? And I think that's a higher bar right there in terms of taking guns away that people have already purchased.
I think that's a slippery slope, though. I agree. Angela, your question,
I was
do I
just-
need that gun? No, I don't
Well,
want that gun.
And
But
I'm
go
not
ahead.
saying take away all guns,
Right.
right? I'm not saying that because you have a right as a citizen to do that. But do I need to come in here? What if I came in here, y'all, with an AK-47 and Southside weapon wrapped around me and hugged you?
There's a
What
sign
would
at the
you
front
do?
door that says you cannot bring weapons or alcohol into this facility. So
So I wouldn't make it in
No,
anyway.
I
Or
don't know.
What if I checked it in and saw you? You know what I mean? Do I need a weapon that's meant for war? That's meant to go kill people in war? Do we
I
need
would say
that?
I would say no, but then again, it becomes a question of that slippery slope. Who has the authority to tell you don't have the right to own that gun? Is that the government?
Yes, ban it.
Okay, all right.
And
All
Heddle,
right.
the concern is the sheriff has held news conferences multiple times recently where he has weapons laid out on a table, only to find out that some of those weapons have a history. They've tracked them to a homicide, to a shooting. These weapons are alive. These weapons go from person to person illegally. That's the toughest job, is to stop those and get them off the street, not the legal gun license possessing person who takes it out hunting or goes to the shooting gallery, fires off for half an hour, enjoys it, works on their accuracy. They're not the problem most of the time. It's
Most of
these
the time.
illegal weapons that are out there that get passed along that we see sitting on that table, and those are the only way they get stopped, is ultimately they're involved in a big enough crime that everybody gets busted and all the weapons get
Like you say, though, it's
confiscated.
most of the time because the main guy is the guy you're describing. He's the guy who's trained. He's the guy who's licensed. He's the one guy you would want training other people how to use these weapons. So there's the crack.
Let me go to another caller. We got Daryl in St. Augustine. Daryl, you're live on air, Daryl.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
The simple fact is we just keep talking about it in thoughts and prayers and blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Angela. We do not need an AK-47, but we will never, ever change it if all we do is talk about it. We changed and got out of Vietnam when we started showing on the 6 o'clock news boys with their arms blown off. We did civil rights when we started showing innocent people protesting, getting dogs sent on them, and fire hoses. When you show on the 6 o'clock news what an AK-47 does to the human body, then people will go, hey, we need to stop this. Every child that's been shot, every person that gets shot should be a picture of their dead body on the 6 o'clock news, and suddenly people will have a amazing change of attitude when you have to look at it. Nobody is looking at it right now. Force people to look at it, and it will change. But you just keep talking about it, nothing's happening.
Thank you, Daryl.
That congressman in Maine, he saw it. He's a Democrat, right? He supported having the AK-47. He said, change his mind. Call
Jaron
John Rutherford.
Golden.
Yes.
He apologized to the people of Maine and
But for
said,
the-
Call John Rutherford. Call Rick
For
Scott.
the old
call
TV
Marco
reporters in this room,
Rubio.
we used to show bodies back in the 70s and 80s
No.
on TV. It is no longer done for all the right reasons, and unfortunately, all you got to do is go to some movies and you'll see it. You'll see it in special effects and understand what an AK-47 can do. We don't need to see it, I believe, on TV or in a web story.
let's get to some more callers. Obviously, a lot of people calling in. You are live on air.
Hello.
Hello, you're live on air.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, we keep focusing on the AK-15. By the way, I don't own any guns personally, but we forget that in Jacksonville alone this year we have 100 people killed, and the vast majority of them were just done with regular handguns. It's the individual who did this murderous situation in Maine. If he would have done the same thing with a couple of a pistol or handgun also, in Florida or some other states, because we have carry laws, there's a good chance that somebody else in that bowling alley or that bar would have had a gun and would have stopped them real quick. So that's something to also consider and think about.
Well, the bar manager did try with a knife, according to his father, and what do they say? You don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that kind of weaponry just does everything else.
Go ahead.
We're just if you're just joining us, we're kind of reviewing this week's big topics, talking about the mass shooting in Maine. You can listen live on the radio, watch us on the stream on Facebook or on the WJCT YouTube page. Call us at 549-2937. Message us on X at FCC On Air or email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Let's go to Michael in Jacksonville. Michael, you're on air.
Good morning. I want to raise the subject of ghost guns. Approximately 25% of the firearms being confiscated by police around the country are ghost guns. And these are guns that are sold online in parts and can't be traced. The problem is that, or rather the solution is that 2 states have won successful lawsuits against the primary manufacturer of these ghost guns. And yet, in Florida, we seem to be going in the other direction. So this is an obvious problem, a gun that can't be traced, a gun that anyone can get without licensing. So why can't we at least take this one little piece of the puzzle and work on it?
Thanks, Michael. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, go after. It's kind of like the state's attorneys general went after the opioid producers, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was in the council, that was something that was kicked around, and it got rejected by the general counsel's office at the time. But when whoever took over as president, they ran with the ball and they joined in these lawsuits. It works. I mean, it can work. But as the gentleman just said, it's just one piece of the puzzle. You gotta, again, you gotta address the mental health issue. You gotta, we were talking about how you get these things off the street. Well, get the illegal ones, as Dan brought up, the ones who are being illegally sold and traded on, black market. Get them off the street. Get them off the street. And then if you want to buy a gun like that, well, we're going to tax the holy hell out of you. All right? We don't care what the states permit it. We're going to subject you to a tax. We're going to charge you $5,000 in order to buy that weapon. And the federal government can impose that on the states and blah, 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 move on. And then, like the gentleman says, we go after these ghost manufacturers as well.
What about regulating the ammunition?
I think, yeah, that's interesting. I know quite a few guns. I support Second Amendment rights, but I don't own a gun. I don't just have no interest. But I do speak to people who are hoarding ammunition right now because there is a fear out there that ammunition will be regulated.
Don't forget, you can make your own. You can pour your own copper. You can make it. You can mold it. You can reuse your cartridges. And there's even those who have successfully 3D printed guns.
See, I think that's why there's a national shortage of pennies. But that's just my theory.
That's aluminum.
Let's go to some more callers. Jim on line 4. Jim, you're live on air.
Yes, I wanted to make a couple of comments. One is, this whole Second Amendment argument is nonsense. The third word in the Second Amendment is regulated. So, if we didn't have regulations on the street and people were dying in horrific car crashes every day, I think we'd probably do something about it.
All right,
Second, we have politicians. The mental health problem we have is either with the politicians or they're connected to the gun lobby.
Yep.
So are all our politicians crazy, or are they owned by big money?
Follow the money.
Exactly. Call your lawmakers. Regulations, like you said, you want common sense gun laws. No one's against the Second Amendment, but once again, common sense. Call John Rutherford. Call Rick Scott. Call Marco Rubio and let them know.
Let's go to Brenda on line 1.
You're going to call them right now, Jack?
I'm going to call John right now.
Brenda, you're on
good
live.
Morning.
You're live.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I am I'm tired of people always saying that Democrats want to take guns away from people, and I've never really heard anybody really come out and say that, but we seem to be so laser focused on the gun. And I'm just like somebody said earlier, why go to a gunfight with a knife? It's never going to work. And I never want to be in a position, whether it's a home invasion or a government takeover or a terrorist situation, where I'm not able to protect myself or my family. And having said that, there's no one right answer to this ginormous problem that we have. But we are so fixated on the gun that it's, to me, in the conversations that I have with people, it's hindering the conversation, because the people on the other side, that's all they hear is the argument about the gun. And we've got to start having better conversations about the real answers. It's just not the gun. And I'm sorry if that offends other people, but That's just my position. I
Thank
think there's
you.
more than one right answer to this problem.
Thank you so much for your call, Brenda. What about that? Are we paying enough attention to the issue of veterans and their mental health? Are we paying enough attention to one of the things that was mentioned was that there were a lot of right-wing posts on this man's Twitter page. Are we paying enough attention to the problem of extremism? And that's another issue that we don't talk a lot about either.
We're not a very healthy society right now, whether physically, spiritually, emotionally. We're just not a very healthy society. And what we're experiencing right now is a lack of trust in our governmental institutions because they don't seem to be able to address more than one issue at a time. You're talking about complex social, economic, political matters that our institutions just quite honestly seem incapable of addressing.
Yeah, and let's face it, there are regulations on the books for guns. They can be regulated. The courts allow regulations. It's a political will question in terms of where people are going to draw the line. I mean, machine guns are not legal. You can't go just get a machine gun. For the bullets, I think there's armor-piercing bullets are not legal. And so there are ways that these regulations can be put in place. There are lines that can be drawn. It's a question of where do you draw the line. And I agree it is a holistic issue and has to be attacked that way. But, the problem is that when you have easy access to guns that can create a huge amount of carnage in a very short period of time, then that means that when you do have these cases of mental health issues or whatever the issues may be, that somebody wants to make a statement for whatever reason, they can do so and create a huge amount of damage. And that's what the mass shooting issue is. It's not somebody going to 20 different places and killing 20 different people. One place, I mean, people are out here bowling and a night out at a restaurant and they're being cut down
In
by
Lewiston,
somebody.
Maine.
And it's a youth night.
And,
So that has to be part of the
It's
thinking.
just horrific. And you have all these people sheltering in place in Maine.
I know, like, what do you tell
thousands
your
of people.
children when you're
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
staying
it's
home
just traumatic in
and there's a
every
gunman
sense
on
of
the
the way.
loose?
This is a big issue, right? Like the caller said, a very big issue. Going back to some of your questions, how do we address these things? I think sometimes in the media we're afraid to say it because we don't want to offend. Just like the caller says, we don't want to offend someone if we're talking about extremism, right? Because then you don't want to make those people upset, right? If we want to talk about veterans and their issues, we don't want to upset this audience. I think a lot of times we're not asking the right questions. When we get our lawmakers in here, we softball them, right? We don't ask them the tough questions and hold them accountable sometimes. When you're seeing that, when you have them here, ask those tough questions and make them be accountable to it.
And
So I
we're a
think-
military town.
So a lot of times we don't ask questions like that because we don't want to offend the military, right?
But people in the military will tell you that they're not being taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
See, I go back even further than you guys. My father had a very good coworker who went to Vietnam. Went to Vietnam before, happy, smart, came back smarter, not as happy. That's PTSD, but we didn't know what that term meant back then. This week, a number of grants were given out by the Jaguars Foundation in the city to military veterans groups, and those groups do help those veterans. That needs to be said more than just in November or in the Veterans Day time period.
Definitely a lot of callers and a lot of interest in this topic. No surprise. We're going to try to get to some other topics.
A whole lot of calls.
Okay, in other news, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has once again captured headlines, this time after an officer was arrested for driving under the influence in a marked police vehicle. Also, the arrest of Kim Cobb, coupled with the resignation of former candidate for Sheriff Lakeisha Burton in her role with Mayor Deegan's administration. Let's start with the officer DUI. Who is the officer and what do we know about him?
Well, we know that he was. Go ahead, Dan.
No, go please.
I was going to say, just know that he's somebody who's worked for the sheriff's office for about 4 years, and the sheriff office got a call and went out and found that he was, in fact, under the influence and driving in a patrol vehicle.
Yes, his girlfriend indicated that they'd both been drinking and had an argument, and then he, as many many people would do in an argument, safest thing is to leave, but he shouldn't have left, and the sheriff said that specifically. He should not have been driving, period. not just a police car. And sure enough, he was caught pulling into a gas station by another officer and refused to give a breathalyzer, which automatically gets you, a license suspension. So not the smartest thing in the world, and thankfully caught before he got out on the street. Not the first time. We had an officer some years ago driving right in the neighborhood of the station in a marked police car who was under the influence, and he was fired but got his job back through civil service. It's not the first time.
Whether or not the DUI arrest sticks or not, I don't know, because I don't think they got him behind the wheel. All right, I think he walked into the Wawa wherever he was, and the other
The resident lawyer says.
Yeah, there you go. And they saw him, whatever. So, but that's really irrelevant. Whether or not the criminal DUI sticks, I mean, he's going to get the suspension, obviously, because he did not blow. But the administrative review is going to be, problematic.
He's had some minor issues with driving
sure.
concerns on his records. I don't know if that's enough. This is, I'll give the sheriff's office credit. They see something wrong, they will suspend, fire, or place a person on, if they get arrested, place them on a non-front desk job. And so this is done. It's been done by the previous administration all the way back to Rutherford. They fired as soon as they saw, or at least suspended.
Well, so in this case,
news.
Accountability on Jacksonville Sheriff's Office part and TK Waters' part.
I know where that's going.
That's right. You do have the sheriff himself coming out and making this announcement.
Yeah,
and he somebody who delegating it to somebody, and it does show, I would think, some accountability and also a message to everybody else on the force.
And
Absolutely.
And he has said that, right? He has said, if you see us doing wrong, tell us, and we're gonna, do. He has said, I'm gonna do my part to make sure that they're held accountable.
So speaking of holding them accountable, JSO is also facing allegations of police brutality following the arrest of 54-year-old Kim Cobb. What happened in this case, and is there surveillance video?
Well, there's body cam video, certainly, but the sheriff's office is not releasing that under the pending investigation flyer. And it's not the first time in recent months that we've had someone who's arrested who is then shown in the mugshot arrest photo with severe bruising on their face. We had a young man, Lakean Woods, who still, when he got transferred up a month later to Tallahassee for another charge, still had blood black red eyes and after his eyes were swollen. And that's the second one in the space of less than 2 months where the family members are saying, my family member got beat up by the police.
Why was she pulled over?
Smell of marijuana, from what I understand.
And then they found a vial of something, according to the police report.
And according to the police report, too, wasn't she resisting arrest? But at some point, do you think the officer has discretion on how hard that the officer takes a person down?
Right.
Because you have discretion. Would you knock down an 80-year-old person like that and do that? And I understand, not all people are
54.
good. Well, I'm just saying, would you in 80?
Yeah.
I was just using that as an example. But I'm just saying that yes, not all people are there are bad people, right? And there's some that need to be taken down like that. But at some point, do you show discretion?
It's interesting because I was thinking this morning, I'm looking through these topics, and, what is the connectivity, if anything, between the DUI arrest and this particular situation? Now, going to the Kim Cobb situation, it's like, all right, so what was the basis for the stop? Okay, obviously the cop's going down the road. He didn't smell marijuana. It wasn't like a Cheech and Chong movie. You saw the vehicle on fire, going down the road. But so what was the basis for the stop? All right, you roll down the window, you smell marijuana. Okay, then all of a sudden you're out of the vehicle and there's a full search. The vial was not found in the vehicle on the seat. It was found in her purse. All right, so you find that, and there's a white powdery substance. What test did you do at the scene to confirm whether or not it was a narcotic? All sorts of questions. And then you've got the resisting arrest, right? You slam the woman. So what's the connectivity with the first issue, the DUI? Judgment? Training?
In a perfect
What's going
world,
on? I mean, because you got 28, 29-year-olds, whose brains probably have infused at this point, right? Where's the training? Where is the...
Because they didn't take down that cop, did they? They didn't throw him on the ground
No,
when they
did
arrested
not.
him
That's
at
a good
all,
point.
right? They didn't say, oh, come on and throw him down.
Fair enough.
And that's what I'm saying. That's where the discretion, training, all of that comes in as far as when do you do that?
in a perfect world, the officer who did this noticed something presumably on the road that led him to pull over this woman. Some erratic driving, some run a red light, whatever, any possibility. That's the training, supposedly, that you are able to observe and analyze. As far as taking down the suspect, you don't know until we see this body cam what the woman was doing. If she was just twitching and going, no, I don't want to get arrested.
So release the body
A body
cam.
slam is pretty serious.
But for
and if she ended up on her face, then that officer was not thinking of how to put this woman safely on the ground and secure her.
Dan, some officers, because a person may say, "What are you doing?" and cuss at them, they take that as a way of, "Oh, I'm gonna slam you down."
And that has certainly been noted in the city before. Yes.
And just to be clear, the family has seen
The body cam.
the body cam video, and
Mhm.
they said that there was nothing in there that said, this should happen. Of course, we haven't seen it. The judge hasn't seen it either.
Now, we've seen edited LaKeon Woods' body cam.
Correct.
We've also seen the latter half of that arrest from a person who was parked down the street. As I said on this show a few weeks ago, I don't know how to answer that one. I see a person resisting in Mr. Woods' case. I see incidents happening. I don't know. Take a look at what happened 2 weeks ago in Camden County, Georgia, when a man who had been 16 years in state prison unfairly, the Innocence Project got him released, is pulled over by a Camden County sergeant because he's speeding 100 miles per hour and erratically, although it was albeit a very short amount of time. They both were very, very in your face when the confrontation occurred. I don't know how to call that one. The guy got out of the car and he was ready to go, and the sergeant was yelling real loud. As someone noted in an email to me, whatever happened to the nice, polite license and registration, sir? As I was pulled over in Florida on Sunday, and
That's gone
very
some days.
nicely done. No ticket, but that's the way I expect to be treated when I get pulled over.
In this Jacksonville case, the woman who was injured during the stop, she was not the driver. She was the passenger.
Oh.
And so, you kind of have these cases where these traffic stops, that seems to be the worst case scenario. They seem to spiral from one thing that's sort of just a really basic stop into confrontations, and somebody, the mug shots of her, she really has a really
that's
banged up
swollen eye,
You
and
don't-
it's obvious of an internal injury.
I've got a case going down, not in Duval, but it's down north of Tampa, and it involves the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. And I've seen a lot of their internal training protocols and things of that nature. Not only are they not trained in de-escalation tactics, they are actually commended for kind of like tag-along arrest. So if you initiate, you're rewarded for your initiative in pulling people over and then kind of building a portfolio of additional charges. And so maybe that's just the world of police practice. And I'm federal court on this right now. So it's I think there's a lot. I'm looking at this photo of this woman. I mean, come on. Look at it, people. Look at this. I mean,
And Dan, it goes back to what happened to just saying license or registration. Because
Right.
I'm terrified that if I ever get stopped, I'm afraid. I really, really am afraid that if I do get stopped, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling 911 or 630-0500 to say, hey, there's an officer here who's about to stop me. Please stay on the call with me. Because that's how, because you just don't know where it's going or what's going to happen.
I
better call Saul.
A few years ago, when I was working at the Times Union, the sheriff's office had some incidents and decided to send some journalists through their
training.
their shooter training. And unfortunately, the photo chosen for the front page is me pointing a 9mm at somebody. But that incident,
Oh, goodness.
that
Man.
incident did bring to mind the fact that here I, quote unquote, pulled over a guy for some traffic infraction, and I shot him dead, quote unquote, when he was reaching for a wallet. The
But
split
why?
second, because he was reaching for something and he was his attitude was, again, this is a cop, this is training. There was just something there that said he's reaching for a weapon, and he wasn't. So
you killed an innocent man.
I killed an innocent police officer, quote unquote. So the split second decision for some of these, that is an issue to be considered.
Let's go to Linda in Mandarin. Linda, you're live.
Thank you. We had this topic before when the young man was arrested last month, and I think as advocates for our community, I pay the sheriff's officers, I give them a pension, and I should not have to fear for my life if there's a traffic stop or if an officer, because an officer has discretion to take my life and not be held accountable at all. I know you guys are talking about, they have a hard job. I know I have a nephew retired, but it does not give the right to the police to use unbridled, what just because they can do. Is that a good officer? if you're a passenger, and I would want you to know, because I had someone, next door that the police were crawling in my backyard. I didn't know who it was. I called 911, and they, bammed on my door because, they were searching for someone, but I didn't feel comfortable letting them in. We need to have our officers that we can count on. And if there is a transaction, if you ask questions or you don't submit immediately, that is resisting arrest in our area. If
Thank you,
do
Linda.
not do exactly what the officer does. But so we need officers to be advocates for us, not just warriors. Thanks.
Linda brings up a good point, whether there is a trust issue with the community and law enforcement. And one of the things that, we look at the history of training and the Michael Brown case in Ferguson, right? And we look at what came out of the DOJ and all of the recommendations for police training, implicit bias training. Is JSO up to speed on all of that? I mean, does anyone know if they are getting some of this regular training when we have a shortage of police officers and things like that?
It's a great question. And quite honestly, I have to tell you, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe that's a question we get TK Waters on. We get TK Waters on here next week and let him.
This is your official invitation.
Yeah. Now that
he was on with me a month ago.
I was going to say now that Al,
that's a question I wish I had thought of, because I'm aware of training that they get. They get how to handle and they do have some mental health experts riding with some of the officers to assist in de-escalation and alternative ways to treat someone versus prison.
I want to move on to the mayor's director of community initiatives.
We both had something more to say. I know. We got to go on.
I know. We're never going to get to this.
We're going to just take it offline,
we'll
Jack.
Get that work.
The clock is ticking.
The mayor's director of community initiatives, Lakeisha Burton, stepped down from her role at the mayor's office this week, announcing she needed to focus on taking care of her husband, Greg. Really heartbreaking, but also understandable. Lakeisha's really beloved in this community.
I don't think she's going far. I mean, obviously she's got family issues, personal issues she needs to address, and that's wonderful. She's able to take care of financially. She's able to take care of her husband. That's great. I think it's a loss for the Deegan administration on a day-to-day basis. I think she'll stay heavily involved in a policy level, I would think. I mean, it should be a resource that the administration could reach out to, and I can see her being involved on a variety of ad hoc. In an ad hoc fashion.
Our very best to Greg, to her husband.
Greg was, I deemed Greg to be possibly the most capable and nicest school board police chief we've had in quite a while, who was proactive enough to talk about things before we would call. And it saddens me to know that he is having to deal with a stroke right now. And I broke the story at the Times-Union of Lakeisha running for sheriff and had a long talk with her. And again, came to appreciate her for her skills and abilities, along with when she got her new substation for Arlington and got to spend time with that new office. So that's you're right, both talented people, and I have a friend who is undergoing stroke rehab right now. I'm hoping that Greg comes out of this with everything intact and maybe gets back to doing the stuff that he loves, and so does she.
He's very knowledgeable in what he does, and she's very knowledgeable.
Yeah,
really a double loss, definitely.
You can really feel not only her love for him.
Oh gosh, you see her post. Oh, they are in love with each other. When you see
them, and then also just how the community has kind of gathered around them. I do want to say, I just found it so commendable for her to make this kind of brave decision, because I think a lot of times as women we feel like we have to juggle it all, and I think it's okay to say in life sometimes, this is my priority.
And she's in a position that she's able to, because a lot of times some people, they're not in a position where they're able to step back from their job, because sometimes we have to work, right, and take care of a loved one.
Well, Greg campaigned with her. It was wonderful. You go to the mayor's, to the sheriff's debates, and Greg would be there, and separate cars. And he was always sitting in the back. He never contributed, as did another spouse of a candidate at one point. He just observed, and I'm sure helped.
We also want to move on to another hot topic from this week. Councilman Nick Howland raised concerns this week over a no-bid contract Mayor Deegan was awarded to Langton Consulting. The $300,000 contract is for grant writing, policy development, and lobbying services provided by the firm. What is a no-bid contract?
Yeah, basically, usually the way the city works is you ask for firms that are interested in getting city taxpayer contracts to put in their best bid price or their best proposal for why they're the most qualified. And there's a competitive process. A no bid contract would be one where the city decides that for various specific reasons that only one firm will be considered for a contract and that firm gets the job.
Is it unethical? Is it illegal?
No. In
It's
fact,
not-
there are times where, again, there might be this either state statute or, the local ordinance code may require, and Angela, you can speak to this as well, might require that you submit it for competitive bidding, but you can waive it. You bring it before the rules committee, and you get enough votes on the rules committee, then you waive the competitive bid requirements. But that begs the question: there are exceptions to the obligation to bid some of these things competitively. Professional services, for example, this might fall under the professional services classification. So.
I do want to kind of chime in with Mayor Deegan's statement. She said Langton Consulting is the only firm that we found that offers grant writing, lobbying, and policy development together. And she just called this kind of a political move to criticize her. What are your thoughts, Angela?
I think it is a political move to criticize her, because sometimes if you have the authority, and this is what she chose to do, and there are plenty of times, right, when administrations choose who they'd like to do something, a particular thing. And in this particular case, she felt this was the most qualified person, the most qualified company to do so. And did other administrations get this? Probably too.
And
probably
you're saying
yes.
that as somebody who's sometimes on the bidding end, right? As as the person making the bid, right?
Yeah.
You're a business owner, so
Yeah, so sometimes that can happen. And if she felt he's the most qualified, because that's probably what she looked at first and foremost, right? Who's most qualified to do the job? Now,
Well, they seem to be a niche boutique. They seem eminently qualified to do this.
I've
so-
known Mike since he was a state lawmaker, so and I've
You
watched
go
him.
way back.
I go way back, and then he knew his stuff because immediately he began consulting. And I'll freely admit I see him and his wife at my church sometimes. So we do see each other, but I don't think I've interviewed him in forever. But if he was the logical choice and a no bid was allowed, then what's the beef?
Well, I think the issue is that for it to be a no-bid contract, the city had to show there was no other firm in the country that could do this work.
And I said if.
And in the case of Langton Consulting, I mean, the contracts for federal lobbying, Langton Consulting does not do federal lobbying, does not have anybody registered to do federal lobbying. And for grant consulting, which Langton Consulting does, and public policy development, which is sort of vaguely defined in this. So, so they were selected because they are doing a subcontract with a firm that does federal lobbying. Who's to say if the city were to put out this and say, give us your best proposal for how you would do federal lobbying and grant writing for us? There are firms that do both of those right now. And there's nothing that would prevent a firm from subcontracting the same way that Langton Consulting did. So the question is the justification. It's exceptional, not the usual process to sort of short circuit the usual competitive bidding, which is put in there for the interest of taxpayers to make sure that there's not favoritism, there's not inside dealing, that there's a fair, competitive, transparent, open process.
Dan and we were talking about this earlier, right? Dan, you had the comment of, or was it Jack? One of you guys said, is the honeymoon over for Donna Deegan?
There have been enough issues that have cropped up in the past few months. I think now it's down to business as usual. She's the mayor. It's not getting to learn how to be a mayor. She's the mayor.
all right. And with that, it is finally time for our lightning round. All right, here's what I'm excited about. Cinta, the Malayan tiger at the Jacksonville Zoo, is pregnant, y'all, which means we're soon going to have 2 baby tiger cubs at the zoo. I love me
Twins?
a baby.
Oh,
well,
wow.
at least 2. At least 2. What about you guys?
Well, tomorrow is the first event at the newly renovated Florida Theater after millions of dollars. And it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which means things will be thrown, and I don't want to be part of that cleaning crew. I will be there tonight at the VIP opening. I can't wait to see it. I'd sit there and look at the peeling paint and go, gosh, this movie palace needs some makeup.
Angela?
I just look, I've been thinking about the whole Taylor Swift thing in the NFL. They weren't dating when they came here. One of our players needs to date, I don't know, somebody big.
Well,
like
Beyonce's
that.
taken.
Yeah, Beyonce's taken. We got to think of somebody big. So the
Touchdown.
NFL will talk about that all week long.
All right, let's go to the rest of the panel.
Someone's got to give a shout out to Florida, Georgia, Florida, whatever you call it. I mean, it's great for the city. The locals may want to run away and stay away from downtown, but it's a great economic driver for the city, and hopefully we keep it beyond 2025.
And following up what Jack said, this is the first year that a Jacksonville high school product is starting quarterback for Georgia. Lots of them started for Florida, so a lot of history and tradition, but this is a first, and we'll see who wins the game.
Awesome.
Should be a good one.
Who are y'all rooting for?
Got to go. I'm a Florida guy.
FSU.
The University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah,
They're not in the game, Angela. Thanks to our panel. We'll be right.
Presents the Right Whale Festival, November 4th and 5th at Main Beach Park. Learn about whale conservation with family fun, live music, food, eco activities, and arts and crafts. More info at ameliaisland.com/whale.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Personal Injury and Wrongful Death Law Firm. Serious injury cases are complex, and civil trial attorneys present the evidence juries need to see and hear. More at waynehogan.law.
It took 3 weeks, but the House has a new speaker, and he says he's determined to get to work.
The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down.
What does the election of far-right Representative Mike Johnson mean for Congress? We also get the latest from the Trump trials in New York and Georgia. That's next time on the 1A News Roundup.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
On Bay Street is here with the gory details. Thanks for joining us, Kenyana. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're from Jacksonville, right?
Yes, I've been here since high school. Yes, ma'am.
And tell me a little bit about how you came up with this idea.
Oh my gosh. So for any creatives listening, you might be able to understand this, but I woke up one day and I was just looking for a Halloween event and I didn't see anything. I moved back from Orlando recently and I was like, okay, I'm used to Halloween Horror Nights, what's here? And I didn't see anything. So I just saw it as an opportunity as an event producer just to bring something fun for the city.
So why Bay Street, and kind of describe the event to someone who's never heard of it.
Okay, so Bay Street, right? Everyone's familiar. You have Live Bar, Justice Pub, you have Myth and Element Bistro. So my thought process was to say, hey, there's nothing that's happening on Sunday. Didn't know that it was Florida Georgia weekend. And I just decided to do something that was fun, but also would make money for the actual business owners. I wanted to bring them more business and something fun for the creatives and just the locals of Jacksonville.
And do people dress up? What do they expect when they come to the event?
Oh my gosh, so you're allowed to dress up. No weapons, guys. No, absolutely. So you're allowed to dress up there. So it's an oversized, I guess you could say, just a huge Halloween party. It's exciting. It's so much fun. There are food trucks. We have a 3-hour festival that's outside on Bay Street itself called the Bay Street Scream Stage. We have food vendors that are there. Like I said, we have over 20 vendors annually, and they also have access to all those venues that I mentioned before as well.
Music?
Music venues, yep.
Okay, cool. Tell me what you have going on that's different this year.
This year, so the theme changes every year. This year is Twisted Carnival, so it's a carnival that's been taken over by just sinister, crazy clowns.
Oh my God. Are you scared of clowns?
Yes, I am. I don't know why I
that
did
movie,
this.
It. Oh
It's
my
insane.
God. Ever since that, it just changed it for me. What do you think this kind of does for downtown Jacksonville? You know, everyone's kind of hoping for downtown to kind of come back to life here and have more things going on. Is that part of your motivation to do this?
It is. So as I mentioned, while I am still a local native of Jacksonville, I recently moved back. I was in Orlando at Full Sail University, so I was running nightclubs and doing concerts there. So my goal to stay here actually was to bring forth just more entertainment and nightlife to the city. I know we have so much that's coming in time, but I wanted to do it now because we deserve it now. So I can say that I wanted to do this because we just need something fun to do, and I wanted it to be on an annual basis. We have certain things, but the season wasn't, no one did anything with the season yet, so I thought it'd be a fun idea.
Do you find a lot of support from the community when you do an event like this? A lot of times people say, we want to do stuff in Jacksonville, but it's kind of like, it might be hot one year and then the next year it's not. I mean, how do you kind of keep the excitement going for an event like this?
So again, like I said, just the themes themselves. What I will also say is that, you guys, I'm extremely consistent as an event producer, so this will be happening every year. And if I get old, then I guess I'll just have to hand it off to the next people, right? But as far as support, it has been absolutely amazing. I'm with Placemaking Jacks as one of the grant holders. So with Katie Yellow and her team, they've been amazing. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, there's been so many people that have just handed over their resources and their platforms and that have just freely just shared my event. And so it's been amazing. I'm so happy and I just feel so loved with this. It's been great.
So if people want to come to the event, what do they need to know?
They just need to know, be ready to have fun. It's a lot of fun. We do have scare actors that are there, so be prepared. We have a lot of the actual warning, should I say, on the website as far as what to look forward to and what to be mindful of, due to the nature of the event itself. But
So maybe not for young kids.
not for young kids. This is an 18 and up event.
Okay. And
adults only.
And do they need to buy tickets?
Yes, you can buy tickets there on Afton. That's AFTON tickets.com/Nightmare on Bay Street. And we are also on Eventbrite.
How much are the tickets?
The tickets are $20 right now. And I actually think that I'd like to go and probably after here within like the next hour or so when I leave this interview, I think we're going to put 50% off on there with code Duval. So it'd be DUUUVAL, Duval.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about this great event. Again, it is going to be a fun time this weekend with Florida, Georgia, Nightmare on Bay Street. Lots to do right here in the River City. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. See you guys there.
All right. Well, we also wanted to mention that on Monday, we welcome my friend and former colleague, Ann Schindler, as the new host of First Coast Connect. So please join me in wishing Ann the best on her first day. And we're so lucky to have you as a voice for the First Coast community. Can't wait to see where you'll take the show. So stay tuned on Monday. She's going to dive into some of the complexities surrounding Marcy's Law. And great show today. Thank you again to all of our contributors for joining us. Thank you for our callers. Definitely a lot of hot topics, a lot of great opinions. And thank you to the staff here for letting me join you. If you have any questions and comments about First Coast Connect, send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. I'm Hethel Putt, and you're listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. That's our program. Thanks again to all of our staff. Our executive producer is David Luckin. Our producer is Stacy Bennett. Kathy Waterman is our associate producer. Our director, the Spielberg of Operation, Brady Corum. And again, we'll be back on Monday. If you missed anything, you can listen to the rebroadcast at 8 p.m. or find today's show at WJCT.org and on your favorite podcast platform.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's